Kevin Gordon here from Autosavant.com with our video review of the 2012 Volkswagen Golf R with the sunroof and navigation package. This model comes in at basically $35,500 plus the destination, puts it at an out-the-door price just above $36,000. The Volkswagen Golf R could really be best described as a boy racer car for grown-ups. It is, a direct competitor to the Subaru WRX STI and the Mitsubishi Evolution, whatever number they're on at this point, because it's a, high-powered, turbocharged, all-wheel drive car. The thing that separates the Golf R from the other things in its class is it trades some performance for refinement. It isn't to say that the Golf is slow. It isn't. It does have quite a bit of get up and go. But like a lot of small displacement turbocharged engines, this one with the Volkswagen sort of standard 2-liter turbocharged inline 4, it does not really make much power below 3,000 RPM. The turbocharger is just way outside of its range of operating efficiency, below $3,000. But once you hit that point, the turbo comes online really quickly and starts to make quite a bit of power. I think the best way to describe the power delivery of the engine once you're in sort of the sweet spot of the power band is what it must feel like to be an arrow in a compound bow. Because as you get into the power, there's an elasticity and a shove and push as it delivers its throw between about 3,000 and 5,000 RPM. That really is, it's a satisfying thing. It's one of those cars that you'll find yourself just sort of rolling down the highway one day and you downshift once to get into that sort of nice little range, and you do feel yourself sort of, waving yourself through the power to enjoy what this engine's good at. The shortcoming of the engine isn't actually the fact that it doesn't deliver power below 3,000 RPM. I get that. Yeah, completely, forgive me for avoiding that chipmunk. I get the fact that the engine can't make power down that low. It's just not the way small displacement turbocharged engines really work these days. What I find a little disappointing about the engine is the fact that above about 5,000 RPM, it really hits a plateau of power, and you rev it up above that, but not much more comes out of it. The good news is with the 6-speed manual, that 2,000 RPM band where it's really happy, you're perfectly capable of keeping the car there. The 6-speed manual that's in this car is fine, in all honesty. It's not the best or nicest things to drive. The throw in it's pretty long, and there's a notchiness and sort of rubberiness to it, and that's all fine. It hasn't missed a gear. You are going to wind up where you're expecting, which is really all you can ask for. I think the bigger issue with the drivetrain winds up being is the clutch on it. The engagement point is light and it's very high in the throw, and the whole drivetrain seems to have a bit of lash to it. There's that sort of drivetrain lash that you can feel happening where, as you get on the power, you can feel things sort of loading up, and then after you're ready to shift, you feel that sort of unwind. So it makes for a bit of, it's a little bit unrefined. The other issue I have with all the manual versions of this Volkswagen sort of engine transmission setup is the response of the engine. Like, it just isn't that quick to respond to throttle inputs. I'm not really sure what the culprit of that is. If it's the flywheel's heavy or the throttle actual mapping in the software is a little bit off. The all-wheel drive system is the Haldex Volkswagen all-wheel drive system that's pretty common in this layout. You know, the engine's mounted transversely, so it's not really a rear-wheel bias drive system. It's a front-wheel bias drive system. And on dry roads, it really doesn't come into play other than to eliminate all sort of forms of wheel slip. But, you know, if you've got your rally racer boy sort of dreams, there are a few dirt roads remaining out there, and here you can start to put it to, you know, better use at least, and see how it applies its power and how it works. But unlike some of its all-wheel drive competitors, the system really, and the way this thing drives really, is designed to be pushy biased. You really can't provoke the rear end out on this. Now, you can do it if you're doing silly things, and when it starts to come around, it's a rapid and clinching process. But the reality is it's front-wheel drive biased, and it's going to remain that way in almost all types of driving. I mean, we're in pure gravel here, and we'll really let it get it in the, you know, you can sort of get the rear end to step out, but it really does take quite a bit of provoking to do it. I understand all that really can seem quite negative of a way to take the Golf R, but I think that's the other interesting part to me about this car, is it's polarizing in a lot of ways. You know, people either get it or they don't, and people either seem to like it or not understand why you'd pay this kind of money for a Volkswagen Golf. And I'll be honest with you, I sort of fall on both sides of that argument. I think that I really do enjoy driving it. It is a entertaining thing on a daily basis, and we'll talk a little bit about the interior in a second. But I think my issue with it is, from a dynamics perspective, it is a little off, but it's fast and it handles well up until about 8 or 9 tenths. You do get a real 6-speed manual and 3 pedals. The interior of the Golf is sedate and, again, in some ways polarizing, because some people see it and go, ooh, all this stuff is soft touch. It's really clean and simple. Other people get in here and go, wow, this thing is really pretty boring on the inside. You know, in the R version, you get little aluminum inserts in the doors and the dash, but it's clear, it's logical, it is well laid out, everything is about where you'd expect it to be. And the parts that you actually touch, the steering wheel, the pedals, the shifter knob, all those things do feel very good. I have to say that I'm a fan of different types of steering wheels, and I think this one is one of the nicest feeling steering wheels there is anywhere. You know, you get the flat bottom, which is sort of a nice gimmick in all honesty, but you get big fat meaty parts down here that feel really good for when your hands are in the right places. The pedals, of course, you get, you know, metal inserts with the rubberized gripper pieces on them. The shifter has real metal on it. You can tell when it's hot out that it gets quite warm. And it might have some of the nicest seats you can buy anywhere. I mean, if you're not a person of very large stature, and by that I mean width, you'll be very, very happy with the seats in the Golf R. They've got big bolsters. The thigh support is very good. They really are about as good as a passenger car seat can get. You get above standard even for Volkswagen brakes. The pedal has initial good bite, very good feel. It's linear, and they don't seem to give up too quickly from a heat cycle perspective. Other sort of little important points of note with the Golf R, the pedal box itself, where the pedals are laid out, is about perfect. You know, you can heel toe brake this car very, very well, and the spacing between the clutch and the brake pedal and the gas is about as good as it can get. The only little issue with it is the space that the actual gas pedal takes up. If you're a grown-up, you know, in the grown-up's boy racer, and you wear leather-soled shoes to get to work, you'll find that there isn't quite enough space in width to put your foot elegantly by the brake pedal. So if you've got really big feet or wear wide-width shoes, it's something to check before you get in the car, or, you know, you're always going to have to make sure you've got your driving loafers on. The other thing that kind of caught me off guard about this car is it doesn't make a ton of engine or exhaust noise. You do get a little bit of burble, you know, when you're coming off throttle between about 2,000 and 3,000 RPM. But above that, it doesn't make a ton of noise. The engine doesn't sound all that great, in all honesty, but it actually makes quite a bit of noise outside of the car. People have commented that they've heard me coming into the office in the morning, and I was actually surprised by that. But it does make a decent amount of noise outside of the car. And really, the turbo, you can't hear it all unless you put the window down. And if you put the window down, you can hear it light up and whistle a bit, but again, the grown-up side of the Golf seems to be that you drive around with the doors and windows closed, and it really is pretty sedate in here on a daily basis. So where does that leave us? The 2012 Volkswagen Golf R for $36,000 basically. It's a lot of money for a Golf, but there's one little trick, one remaining trick to this car, and that's if you were to go buy yourself an Audi TTS, you basically get this exact drivetrain, this exact all-wheel drive system, and this exact engine. Sure, it makes a few less horsepower than the TTS, but let's face it, a call to everybody's favorite dirty South Volkswagen tuner can fix that for $500, no problem. And if you buy a TTS, they can quickly approach almost $60,000. So really, what you wind up getting is a TTS for $15,000 less in a much more practical package. I mean, it's the one thing to note is it's a hatchback. You can put stuff in the back of it. You can fold down the rear seats and put even larger things in the back of it. The rear seats in the two-door version aren't really anything to write home about, but you can, you know, sit in them. Adults can get back there and not really suffer because at least you don't have a big encroaching roof that you might in a sedan or one of the more four-door sort of coupes that are getting to be so popular these days. I'm sure it's been described this way before, but really what the Volkswagen Golf R is the grown-up's boy racer. If you want to have something that can still be thrown around and be sporty, yet be very practical and not have to park something with big gaudy wings and hood scoops in the parking lot at work every day, it's a really solid choice. Are there areas for improvement? Sure. But I don't think the ways to improve the things that are missing in this car would be able to be done all that well without sacrificing a lot of the livability that you get out of the overall package. So as usual, I'm Kevin Gordon from AutoSavant.com. I look forward to talking to you guys soon.